stuff happens. For 33 hours, I was praying that if this had to happen here, that it wouldn't be one of us.
Yeah, he was walking with him.
Were they holding hands?
Yeah, they were. So, yeah, they drove off in his car, the Dodge Challenger.
The FBI just dropped a revelation so chilling it feels like the opening scene of a political thriller, except this isn't fiction, this is real life, and it has left America shaken to its core. Charlie Kirk, one of the most controversial and influential conservative voices of his generation, was assassinated in broad daylight, and now, the details about how it all happened are pouring in. Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old who pulled the trigger, wasn't some random madman. What investigators have uncovered proves this was a meticulously planned, ideologically driven act that carries echoes of history's darkest moments. Today we're going to peel back the curtain on exactly how this unfolded, the surveillance tapes, the bone-chilling messages engraved on bullet casings, the shocking betrayal from inside his own family that led to his capture, and the global ripple effects this single act of political violence has unleashed. Before we dive in, take a second to like this video, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss the biggest stories hidden behind the headlines.
Viewers responsible for my husband's assassination have no idea what they have done. They killed Charlie because he preached a message of patriotism, faith, and of God's merciful love. They should all know this. If you thought that my husband's mission was powerful before, you have no idea. You have no idea what you just have unleashed across this entire country and this world. You have no idea. You have no idea the fire that you have ignited within this wife. The cries of this widow will echo around the world like a battle cry. To everyone listening tonight across America, the movement my husband built will not die. It won't. I refuse to let that happen. It will not die. All of us will refuse to let that happen. No one will ever forget my husband's name, and I will make sure of it. It will become stronger, bolder, louder, and greater than ever. My husband's mission will not end, not even for a moment. And one of Charlie's greatest talents was his ability, this phenomenal ability to choose great people to follow.
Because what you're about to hear is not just news, it's the kind of story that makes you question everything you thought you knew about America right now. It was September 10th, 2025, a date that will now live in infamy. Charlie Kirk, just 31 years old, founder of Turning Point USA, a man who thrived on sparking heated campus debates and who had built his career by taking on critics head-to-head, was standing before more than 3,000 people at Utah Valley University. He was in his element, doing the kind of prove-me-wrong debates that made him a lightning rod for praise and backlash alike, when at exactly 12:23 p.m., a single gunshot rang out. That bullet, precise and final, struck Kirk in the neck, and in an instant, America lost one of its loudest conservative voices. The scene turned chaotic, a room full of students and staff frozen in horror, the shooter vanishing without a trace, leaving behind not only devastation, but also a nation already boiling in division, now thrown into deeper unrest. And while the immediate shockwaves traveled through the university halls,
job. I was just fired from my job. I was just fired from my job. I was just fired from my fucking job. I was just fired from my fucking job. Now I have nothing but this. I have nothing but this website. I have nothing anymore.
The entire country was about to become glued to every breaking update, as the FBI scrambled to uncover the truth about who carried out this brazen attack and why. For 33 hours, the United States was suspended in fear and speculation. Was this the work of a terrorist cell? Was this foreign influence? Or had political disagreements in America finally escalated to something unthinkable? Then came the answer, one that stunned even seasoned investigators. The shooter wasn't a shadowy foreign agent, wasn't a hardened criminal. He was Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old kid from Washington, Utah. Robinson's face first appeared in grainy FBI surveillance footage, showing a young man escaping the rooftop near the campus auditorium. And here's where this story takes a heartbreaking turn. The person who recognized him, who made the call that led to his downfall, was none other than his own father. Imagine that, watching the news, seeing surveillance of a suspected assassin, and realizing with dread that the outline, the gait, the clothing belonged to your son. That call changed everything. Robinson's father, with the guidance of a family friend who was a youth pastor and also part of the U.S. Marshals Task Force, reported his son. Within hours, Tyler Robinson was in custody, ending one of the fastest high-profile manhunts in American history. But the arrest was only the beginning. What investigators were about to discover would paint a picture not of a random act, but of chilling premeditation. Court documents revealed that Robinson had been growing increasingly political in recent years, targeting Charlie Kirk specifically because he believed Kirk was a purveyor of hate. But here's where the story veers into disturbing territory. Robinson wasn't some underachieving outcast. In fact, he was the opposite. He had earned a 34 out of 36 on his ACTs, nearly perfect, and secured a $32,000 scholarship to Utah State University, though he only attended for one semester. This was a bright young man with limitless potential. And yet, according to classmates, he wasn't remembered as a leader or troublemaker, but as a Reddit kid, someone who lived online, immersed in internet forums, memes, and political rabbit holes that warped his worldview. That detail might sound trivial until you realize how much influence these digital echo chambers can have. One classmate put it bluntly, "This is what happens when you spend too much time online, when communities built on anger and ideology replace real friendships and reality itself." Robinson had become a casualty of online radicalization, and tragically, he dragged the country into his collapse. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered evidence that still sends shivers through anyone following the case. First, there was the surveillance footage. FBI teams pieced together his every move from the moment he arrived on campus at 8:29 a.m. in his gray Dodge Challenger. Hours of tapes showed him positioning himself, preparing, waiting. Then came the most grotesque piece of evidence, the bullet casings. On the casing that fired the fatal shot, Robinson had etched bizarre cryptic messages that exposed the twisted mix of politics and internet culture driving him. One casing read, "Notices bulges, oh whoa, what's this?" A reference tied to online furry and gaming communities. Others bore phrases like, "Hey fascist, catch," with arrows, "Bella Ciao," an anti-fascist resistance song, and shockingly juvenile phrases like, "If you read this, you are gay, Lamau." On the surface, they sound like nonsense, but when investigators laid them out, they painted a terrifying portrait of a mind completely consumed by online radicalization, where irony, memes, and extremism blended into something lethal. This wasn't just a political assassination, it was the byproduct of a digital culture breeding ground that weaponized young minds, and it gets worse. Robinson's roommate later turned over messages that proved just how premeditated this was. Robinson had discussed retrieving a rifle from a drop, language that revealed the careful planning behind this act. This wasn't a sudden rage-fueled decision, it was calculated, organized, and chillingly deliberate. And yet, outside the courtroom and investigation rooms, society was tearing itself apart in response. Some people online mocked Kirk's death, even holding signs saying he deserved it. Videos circulated of individuals laughing about it, one even going viral before the person lost their job for publicly celebrating the assassination. The fact that such reactions even exist shows just how polarized America has become when the murder of a political figure isn't universally condemned but instead cheered by some. You know the country has crossed into dangerous territory? Meanwhile, the FBI showcased just how far technology and forensics have come. They had palm prints lifted from the rooftop ledge where Robinson fired the shot, shoe impressions that matched Converse Chuck Taylor's, and multiple angles of surveillance footage showing his escape route. It was this airtight evidence, coupled with his father's heartbreaking recognition, that led to his capture in just 33 hours, an arrest timeline that FBI Director Kash Patel called historic. And yet, even as Robinson sat in custody facing charges of aggravated murder that could bring the death penalty, the story wasn't over. Investigators revealed that Robinson may have been on the phone immediately after the shooting, caught on doorbell footage talking about what he'd done. The unanswered question remains, was he working alone, or was there someone else on the other end of that call? But perhaps the most powerful moment in this entire saga came not from the FBI, not from the governor, not even from court documents, but from the woman left behind. Charlie Kirk's wife broke her silence, and her words transformed grief into defiance. She stood before the cameras and declared that those who killed her husband had no idea what they unleashed. Her voice cracked with pain, but carried the strength of conviction as she promised that Kirk's mission to preach patriotism, faith, and God's merciful love would not die with him. Instead, she vowed it would grow louder, stronger, and bolder than ever before. She promised the world that no one would forget Charlie's name and that his movement, Turning Point USA, would continue. It was a declaration of resilience, the kind of speech that turns tragedy into a rallying cry, and you could feel the momentum shift as supporters rallied behind her words. As America digested all of this, the story expanded beyond Utah, beyond America's borders, sparking international protests and movements. Reports surfaced of demonstrations as far as Vienna, with groups staging White Lives Matter rallies in response to the assassination. The global echo was undeniable. Charlie Kirk's death had become more than a domestic tragedy. It was a flashpoint in the broader struggle over political discourse, extremism, and violence spreading across the Western world. And that's the most sobering takeaway. This wasn't about one man, one shooter, one campus. This was about the collapse of civil discourse, the moment when political disagreement mutated into murder. Even President Trump weighed in, commending Robinson's family for making the excruciating choice to turn him in, rather than protect him. According to reports, Robinson was on the verge of either suicide or a violent standoff with police, but his father and a minister convinced him to surrender. That decision, as painful as it was, may have saved countless lives. The governor of Utah personally thanked the family for their courage, calling it a rare moment of moral clarity in an otherwise tragic event. And yet, the fact remains. A brilliant young man, radicalized by extremist rhetoric and toxic online culture, made the choice to end another man's life for his political views. As Robinson faces trial, and as the FBI continues to sift through his digital footprint, the question lingers: how many more Tylers are out there, isolated behind screens, soaking in rage-filled echo chambers, convincing themselves that violence is justified? How many more fathers will have to make the impossible choice to turn in their own sons? And how many more times will America be tested by the darkness that grows when division is left unchecked? This case isn't about left versus right, or red versus blue. It's about the fact that when society stops talking, stops listening, and instead starts labeling enemies to be destroyed, this is the inevitable end. Charlie Kirk's assassination is now being called the most significant political assassination since JFK, and whether you agreed with him or not, one truth is undeniable: violence silences voices, but it also fuels movements. Tyler Robinson may have believed he was ending a message of hate, but in reality, he only amplified it. And as Kirk's widow made clear, this movement isn't dying, it's just beginning a new chapter. And maybe the most haunting part of all this is the realization that Tyler Robinson didn't emerge from nowhere. He's a mirror reflecting what so many young people are becoming when digital culture replaces reality. His story is a warning that extremism today doesn't always look like a shadowy figure in a trench coat plotting in a basement. Sometimes it looks like the kid next door, brilliant, talented, filled with potential, but slowly swallowed whole by radical rhetoric online until fantasy becomes justification for murder. That's what makes this case so terrifying, because if it happened once, it can happen again. Political violence doesn't start with bullets, it starts with words, memes, and ideas that fester unchecked until someone decides to act. Tyler Robinson's name will go down as a cautionary tale, a reminder that what happens online doesn't stay online, and that ignoring the radicalization of youth in digital spaces is a ticking time bomb for every democracy. Charlie Kirk's death wasn't just one man's tragedy, it was a signal flare that the battle for America's future isn't only fought in Congress or the courts, it's happening in chat rooms, on forums, in DMs, and in the minds of the next generation.